Halo, I have here 3 Mega Construx Halo sets, and I'm just going to cover all 3 of them in one video because they're small. In the center, right here, is the Oni Mongoose set. Over on the right is the Operation Guillotine drop pod with an ODST, and on the left is the Operation Flood Hunter with drop pod with an ODST as well. I'm going to take them on in that same order. To me, it's a little bit of a shame that they didn't go with a Gungoose for this one. You know, the Oni Gungoose has some pretty nice firepower in firefight scenarios, but for what it is, this is pretty well designed. It does not have the corner offset issue, the jacking issue that I had with the last, was it the last Mongoose or the one before that? You know, all 4 tires are on the ground. Everything is nice and even the way that it should be. The main color here is a dark gunmetal gray, and hopefully you can see some of that metallic flake in there. There is one printed piece with the Oni insignia right there. That's printed up very nicely. You've got spots to attach weapons and accessories onto the sides. One there, one over there. Done up a little bit differently. You can also put a second figure on the back. They've got the foot pegs back here, and they also have the handhold up here, and this can also be used as a handhold for a different scenario. So the Mongoose itself, I think, is, again, pretty good for what it is. I just personally prefer the Gungoose style for the 343 era, and for older stuff, I prefer the original styles, or the older styles with the little windscreen on the front. They just looked cooler to me personally, and less like a proper modern day ATV. I very much appreciate the inclusion of the clear rod there to allow you to pose the warhead a little distance away post firing. One thing that would make this better is, you know, a little bit of muzzle flash here, maybe a little bit of blowback, you know, just some stuff to add even more realism to it. But this is much better than not including the rod at all, and of course you can use that rod for other things if you want to make things stand up. The Spartan itself is an enforcer, and I will take the weapon away so that you can see that better. It's a pretty nice true blue, and maybe a little bit cyan of true blue, and you get the copper colored visor, which I think looks a little bit better in person than it does on camera here. It's a little bit brighter and a little bit more opaque. I think just the angle that you're seeing it here doesn't quite do it justice. There's a little bit of metallic flake that is obvious once you get up close to this in all of the blue parts, and the hue is consistent enough between the different blue parts that you don't readily notice the difference. The head is technically a little bit less saturated, and I think it might be a little bit more cyan, but it's all close enough that this looks pretty good. Nothing too fancy about it, but it's good for what it is. I wasn't able to find a great looking pose for the Spartan on this version of Mongoose, but I think that's about the best compromise that I came up with. You can get the legs down farther if you make the Spartan stand up a little bit closer to straight up and down, but I wanted to have him leaning forward a bit. And I mean, I can get that leg in on one side, but then on the other side, well, I guess that's maybe a little bit better right there. Not the very best pose for this, you know. You're a little bit limited by the width of the center, which keeps you from pinching the knees together and getting a better looking pose. But also down here, one thing that I didn't notice or didn't point out is that you can see a little bit of detail underneath the fenders, the front fenders, including the suggestion of a shock absorber there in red, and you have that on both sides as well. So again, the Mongoose itself done pretty well. Operation Guillotine gives us a very bright color swap for the modern drop pod setup, and the base of it still has a little bit of ashiness, a little bit of gradient painting on it, which is nice to see. And the way that works, you bring it down, it's gonna pop off the canopy for it, and the figure will fit in there. It's a little bit tough to squeeze them in with accessories and weapons and things, but you know, there still is enough room. It just takes some time. I think that the color scheme looks actually a little bit better than I expected it to. It just seems so bright that I thought it would look completely ridiculously unrealistic. but it's not bad. I mean, except for back here. But this has the usual stuff where you can start these all the way down, fold it around, pull it up. You can also deploy that completely, just pull the entire thing out, you know, beyond just bringing this up. Spins around, the individual air brake blades come out, and sorry about the focus there. I was focusing on it. I was focusing on it. The camera was focusing on me. But you know, that just pops right out. There are different ways that you can attach different things to this to customize it up a little bit. But I mean, pretty much once you've seen one of these drop pods, you've seen all of them. They just have different color schemes, and some of them have prints, and some of them will do a different thing down here for the base. This ODST definitely looks unique enough compared to others that have been made in the past. The color scheme is pretty bright. The ODST insignia on the front is applied pretty well. You know, when you get up this close, you can always start to see imperfections that aren't quite as obvious in real life. There's just a little bit of paint applied to the end of that SOCOM pistol there, which is done in a dark gunmetal gray with some metallic flake in it. I like the armor set that's used, armor and helmet set that's used for this ODST here. Also has the target designator or target locator. Yeah, overall, it's the whole thing, the whole set is better than I expected, just to my eyes. I thought it was going to be too toyish looking, but it's not bad. There's a little bit of funkiness with some extra stray green paint around the helmet on this one, but that can be scraped off. You know, it's just a little extra, not overspray, but I guess somebody, you know, just had a little extra on their fingers or something when they handled it. The Operation Flood Hunter version is more my style and harkens right back to a classic one that they did, and I feel like this does pretty good justice to the original and to the new design both. So the drop pod itself here has a bunch of paint applications on it that look very good with the striping there. You know, nice job around the windows as well. The striping around the windows and also the surround. All that's pretty good. Check this out. With a little bit of splatter there in addition to the slight bit of gradient. Because the gradient wasn't done quite as well here. It's a little bit more of just a consistent application of paint. Very, very fine all around. But I really like the splatter effects. Those look great to me. And then you've got some, well, this is basically gunmetal gray up here as well. It's very slightly bluish. I didn't push this one all the way down like I was supposed to. And now I just popped the front off by squeezing this in there. But there's nothing else to see on the inside versus the other. But you see a little bit of marbling effect with the metallic flake inside of the main body and the side strakes there. Get in there. There you go. Hey, get in there. I said get in there. I really didn't assemble this one that well, did I? I feel like I left out a piece. No, it's right there. Maybe it's just that hole up in there that's a little bit wider than it ought to be here, because this is loose. So I did assemble it right to begin with, but it's just a little bit loose. So that's a miss. It's not something that's common, though. That's just a small production error. It stays together just fine, but has a little bit less clutch power in there than I would like. Really like the design, though. It's very displayable. Let's take a look at the figure. Oh yeah, this is good. A little bit of paint application with the yellow on the flamethrower itself. Now, I've actually attached the flame sideways here because when I set it up this way, it becomes a little bit loose. So it's just a coincidence that I have on one single set two items that are a little bit loose. I didn't realize the other one previously, but this one I definitely did notice. So that's unfortunate. It's easy to get around that. To fix that, though, just score with a knife from inside at that lip there, score outward, you know, straight out, just to move a little bit of plastic outward, just expand it a bit, and that will fix that. But that doesn't excuse it. You know, they shouldn't have the problem in the first place. So we got the painted on fingers here for the fingerless gloves, and the paint application doesn't look too bad on that armor there. It's very difficult to apply a very bright color to a very dark color. You know, very bright in the foreground, but Mega definitely does their best to bring some just a lot of pigment into the paint that they use. So there's some pretty good opacity there. Just up this close, you can see, especially down here and on its right side, our left, things aren't quite as perfect as they ought to be. From a reasonable distance, you can see that a little bit, but it's not as obvious. And also on the helmet here, that's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I wish it was a little bit better, but I still like the figure overall. I personally tend to like to see the fingerless gloves on ODSTs. They just feel, they feel more valuable to me, more realistic, even though they're not always going to be wearing those. But that's pretty cool though. And then this does have the little bit of slight blue in the armor pieces. It's like a steel blue or blue steel. Yeah, not half bad. Could have been a little bit better, but I still like it. That's it for my look at those 3 sets, though. Man, I really need to play some Halo again. I haven't played in a while. It's been a minute. There have been other games out that I have played in my increasingly rare spare time. But Halo's calling me back, and of course, Infinity hype is very high, even though the game itself is still a ways out. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed this look at these 3 products, and I'll talk to you again soon.